Hello, class. This is the lesson that is meant for March 28th. We are again in Hebrews in a passage, a chapter that may be familiar to you. We are going to be in Hebrews chapter 11 primarily and going into chapter 12, but primarily in chapter 11. That chapter is referred to as the Hall of Faith. There are many Old Testament characters, people that are mentioned in that chapter, and so it is called the Hall of Faith. The word faith is actually used 270 times just in Hebrews 11. The word faithful is used 83 times, faithfully is used 18 times, and faithfulness is used 59 times. I think that's got to be in all of Hebrews. I can't imagine that there would be 270 times that the word faith is used in just one chapter. I'm going to look that up. But certainly the main topic of the whole book of Hebrews is faith, and it really is centered in chapter 11. Um, the writer does qualify the people that he's listing and makes it very plain that he has not listed everyone that he could possibly have listed. There are many other people in the Old Testament that he could have listed. And when we go through them, we say, well, what about him? And what about him? And how come he's not mentioned? Or how come she's not mentioned? Well, the writer of Hebrews makes it plain that he's not mentioning everyone, just so that we know that. But his purpose is to encourage and inspire believers, us. That is the purpose for him even mentioning anyone in this chapter. Last lesson, we were also in Hebrews, and we established that not only is Jesus the better high priest and the better sacrifice and the better revelation, we could substitute the word best or perfect. He is the perfect sacrifice, the perfect high priest, and the perfect revelation of the Father to us. When we see Jesus, we see the Father. We see God in his entirety. They are one. So here in the writer of Hebrews is establishing that not only is Jesus the best, the perfect sacrifice, high priest, and revelation, but he is better than any of the Old Testament prophecies or institutions because, basically, for two reasons. First of all, because he fulfills each and every one of them, those prophecies and institutions, and he's still living. There is no other main figure of any other religion that can claim that that center of their religion is still alive. Mohammed is dead. Buddha is dead. All of the Hindu gods, they never existed, never mind being dead. They never even existed. I prepare and teach a cultural geography class for our 15-year-old grandson, Nate. We meet twice a week for an hour each time. We just finished a unit on Central America and on the islands of the Caribbean Sea, like Cuba and Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, um, and then, of course, the Virgin Islands. And when we were studying that, we used the word blend a lot. The topography, the geography of the land itself is very much a blend of mountains and coastal regions. The language is very much a blend of different languages, Spanish and African and native Indian languages blended together to make a unique a dialect in some of those countries. The population is very often a blend either of the original Spanish settlers and the natives, or the African slaves and the natives, or the African slaves and the Spanish the Spanish settlers. Very much a blended area of our hemisphere. And so is their religion. Very often, their religion is a blend of Catholicism or Christianity blended with the native religions, West African spirit worship, black magic, all kinds of blends with different proportions of each that make it up. Unfortunately, especially in the country of Haiti, for centuries, the leaders of that country, the dictators, have used voodoo to control the people, either by keeping them in fear or threatening a bloodshed in order for them to retain power. Very, very unfortunate situation and quite a challenge for missionaries that go to those regions. The Jews of Jesus' time had done the same thing. They may not have been, the combination may not have been so bizarre, but still they were adding works to the supernatural works of God alone, of Jesus Christ alone. They had developed a works of righteousness, a philosophy or thought that yes, it was by the grace of God, but it was also by their works that they are saved. And that hasn't changed over the centuries. Jewish or not, there are many that believe that their own works are what count even more than Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. With the works comes all kinds of legalistic requirements. When anybody adds anything to salvation by faith alone, through God's grace alone, then it results in self-effort, self-salvation, self-glorification, and self-control, which is what people are looking for anyway. They're looking to control their religion. We all have within us the necessity to worship. We need to worship something, someone. But when we get to choose who it is that we worship, when, where, why, and how, then that is, by and large, the more important element, other than besides the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross that provided us salvation. What an insult to God! Insult to God the Father, insult certainly to God the Son, and an insult to God the Holy Spirit also. When we're looking for control, our religion just becomes a religious cult, and it's based on ethics, based on how we live our lives solely. And if we're satisfied by that, by what it is that we've derived, then we can pat ourselves on the back and we get our own reward here on earth. That's not what the Bible proclaims at all. How do you think God regards those revised, twisted systems? He despises them. The scripture tells us very clearly he despises them. Those are pretty strong words. Hates them, despises them. That is how God views any other dependence on salvation other than the sacrifice of his beloved Son on the cross. Works have always been a byproduct of faith. The scripture makes that very plain. They are a byproduct of the faith. Our works are a result of our faith. They are not a means to salvation. Never a means to salvation. So the new covenant is not a new covenant in the sense that it is replaces the old covenant. It is a fulfillment of the new covenant. The New Testament is a fulfillment of the Old Testament. It's not something new in the sense that we scrap the old and come out with the new. That was not part of God's plan at all. The New Testament, the coming of the Messiah, is the fulfillment of the prophecies that were made plain in the Old Testament in preparation for the coming of that Savior. Faith was as much a part of the Old Testament as it is of the New. The writer of Hebrew gives his readers some examples of faith from the Old Testament. That is what chapter 11 is all about. And at first, in chapter 11, he defines what faith actually is. So let's go to our scripture, Hebrews chapter 11. We're going to start with verse 1. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. The use of couplets like this, two things that are very close in their what it is that they are saying, is a device that is often used by the Bible writers, both in the Old Testament and in the New. It's a kind of a Hebrew kind of thing. They seem to be identical descriptions, parallel certainly descriptions, but usually the second one adds a little bit more that kind of fleshes out whatever the first one of the couplets says. This one was a perfect example of that. The author of Hebrews says in that first one, the assurance of things hoped for, that faith is not the same as wishful thinking or confidence in chance or our destiny. We hear people say that's just my destiny. No, that is not what faith is. It's not putting, it's putting confidence, it's not putting confidence in things that we can only see, hear, or touch. Even Thomas, what did he say? I'm not going to believe until I can put my hands in the wounds of Jesus himself. And many people, they don't believe anything that they can't hear, see, or touch. That is the focus these days on science. It's all about the science. No, it's not about the science. No, it's not. The senses can lie, can they not? Yes, the senses can lie. We can be very selective about what it is that we do see or hear or even touch, and we can be easily deceived. God doesn't lie. God does not lie. God cannot lie. If anybody wants to know of anything that God cannot do, since he's God, that would be one of them. He can't lie. That would be totally inconsistent with his character and his attributes. So faith allows us to have unshakable assurance. As if assurance is not enough, faith allows us to have unshakable assurance on something that we cannot see. Because of the one that gives us that assurance. When we know God, then we know that we can trust him. And when whatever it is that he says, we can be assured of. Anything that he promises, we can be sure that it will be fulfilled. For no other reason than because God is the one that has given us that assurance. We can take God at his word. And because we can take God at his word, we can live our lives accordingly. We don't have to question him. We can't go ahead and trust him. The second couplet goes even a little bit further. Not only is it the assurance, but it is the conviction of things not seen. We can have inner assurance. We can be sure that God's word is true and dependable. But that conviction allows us to go ahead and and outwardly manifest that we have that inner assurance. Think about Noah, good old Noah. He was given, I don't think anybody would doubt or question, he was given a stupendous task, was he not? It was very demanding. It was, from any human point of view, a ridiculous thing for him to be doing. It took him 120 years to complete it. He didn't even know what rain was. He wasn't even building a boat. He was building an ark. What's an ark? But Noah, what did he do? He obeyed God because he had the assurance that whatever God told him to do, he could be sure that it was something that he needed to do. And he had the conviction of that assurance to go ahead and do it. A great example of someone who had not only inner assurance, but outward conviction. Verse 2 of Romans 11. For by it the people of old received their commendation. God always makes his pleasure known to those who trust him. We can be assured that if we trust God, he will assure us that he's aware of that assurance. It may not be in the way that we would choose to have that assurance or would expect to have it, but it is his assurance nonetheless that he lets us know that he has taken pleasure in our response. Faith is not one of the ways that we please God. Faith, in essence, is the only way that we please God. He is not impressed by our scrambling around and doing this, that, and the other thing. Even if we do it in his name, what brings him pleasure is our obedience, our trust in him. No matter what we say or do or think for God, do for him in his name, it is meaningless and worthless apart from God. If we do it with the thought of impressing him, then truly the only one that we are really impressing is ourselves. If we are looking for kudos from our fellow believers, then that's what we're going to get. Kudos from our fellow believers or not, but that should never be our focus. It should always be because we trust God and we are in obedience to him. God needs to be part of the equation. If it's all about us, then we already got our reward. A person can claim to be a Bible scholar, and yet if he reduces every supernatural claim of Scripture to a natural explanation, then what has he done? He's missed the point. It's really not about the Star of Bethlehem or the parting of the Red Sea or the 10 plagues or even the flood. The Bible is about God. He needs to be the focus. And when we break it down and we make those other things an issue and we try to explain them away, well, maybe God, even if we say, well, God used this, to do that, whatever, we are just kind of missing the point. It truly is all about a God. Hebrews 4:31. We're going to pick that up now. Hebrews 4, beginning in verse 32. Actually, I'm sorry. Hebrews 11. I'll get there. Hebrews 11 verses 4 to 31. Yes. Lists hero after hero after hero after hero of the faith. And each one is introduced by the very same words, by faith. It's quite a roster of Old Testament heroes, And the writer of Hebrews makes it plain that he has not listed all of the Old Testament heroes in this list, just some of them. But then in verse 32, here we go, of chapter 11, the writer of Hebrews picks up. And that's where we're going to read Hebrews 11:32, and we're going to go to verse 40. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. Whoa, quite a description. I think we would all agree that the narratives of the Old Testament can be very dramatic. Certainly, even in our study on Sunday mornings in the book of Genesis, we have dealt with some rather dramatic narratives. Interesting that the men that are listed here at the very beginning of what I read in verse 32 were men that held some kind of office. Maybe they were prophets, they were priests. Samuel was both. Maybe they were kings, as David was. They were judges or prophets. The prophets are mentioned there. But they are not held up by the writer of Hebrews because of the office they occupied. They were mentioned because of what they had accomplished by their faith. By faith, Gideon. By faith, David. By faith, Samuel. That is what really mattered, not the office that they held. Gideon, one of my favorite Old Testament characters, he obeyed God by reducing his army of 10,000 well armed and shielded soldiers to 100 men who were only armed with a trumpet in one hand and a torch that was hidden in a pitcher in the other hand. That took some faith to trust God that his mission was going to be accomplished this way, and the glory would go to God, certainly, not to Gideon. Certainly, David obviously trusted God from the time that he was a young boy. What other person would go to face a giant called Goliath, armed only with a slingshot and 5 smooth stones, unless he was assured that God was with him and therefore had the conviction to go ahead and act on that assurance? Samuel is the only prophet mentioned, even though the prophets in general are listed there. He surely represents men and women who courageously and confidently delivered God's message to whoever it was God told them to deliver the message to. And they faced the opposition that came with those proclamations. As a result, many of them were killed for just being the messenger, for just delivering the message that God had given them to deliver. And so they are honored by the writer of Hebrews for their faith and held up to us as being men and women that are worthy of being emulated because of their faith. Verse 39 and 40 finishes this section. 39 begins, "And all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us they should not be made perfect." What does that mean? These mentioned and many, many more that were not mentioned did not know the time or the means of God's salvation. They knew that God had made the promise that he would save his creation, but they really, truly did not know when that was going to happen, and they didn't know the method that God was going to use in order to make that possible. But they knew it was coming. They were assured that it was coming, and they lived their lives according to that assurance. They not only believed it, they knew it. Difference, isn't there? There's a big difference between believing something and knowing something to be true. That was the basis of their trust and therefore the basis of their obedience. We like instant gratification, don't we? I can think of all kinds of ways that we demand instant gratification. When our vehicle goes to the shop and they have to keep it overnight in order to get another part, oh, that is inconvenient. When we wait in line for a register and we find out that we are now waiting in the longest line, that is inconvenient. We have our soups canned and our broth packaged. We could go on and on, instant pudding to whatever it is you might think of. But we like instant gratification. We like things to be convenient for us. While our faith is based on what Christ has done, it's actually, we go back to historical fact. That Jesus did indeed live and accomplished what it was that he was sent by the Father to do. These characters that are mentioned in the Old Testament, their salvation was based on what Christ would do. Their salvation was based on a faith that looked forward to promise, not based on something that had already happened and had been written about historically, but something that was yet to happen, and they knew not when nor how. They were, I think we could call them believers of the highest order. They were not secondary believers, the ones before the cross. I think they were primary believers, that they would believe and live their lives based on something that they were sure was going to happen, but they didn't know when, and they didn't know how. So the last two verses for this lesson, Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. 1 says this, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." This writer uses the analogy of the Christian walk being a race with a finish line. Paul uses that same analogy quite often in his epistles. What if you're going to run a race with the intention of winning it, then what do you need to do? Well, first of all, you need to get in the race, right? Perhaps what the writer of Hebrews, maybe he was writing to those who were not yet believers, encouraging them to get in the race. You need to get in the race. And then what do you need to do? Sit on the curb or just kind of stroll along? No, you need to run. If you intend to win, then you need to run. You need to run with endurance. You need to avoid those things that might get in your way. They're mentioned here, every weight and sin. Avoid those things. Need to keep from being distracted. Need to keep an eye on the finish line. Paul makes that very clear. He focuses on the finish line, on Christ Jesus. The writer of Hebrews closes. We will use verse 2 to close our lesson today. Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Amen. Amen. Next week is Easter, and there is no Sunday school, but I will be recording a lesson that you can view at your leisure. So know that even though there won't be a physical Sunday school, there will be a recorded lesson. God bless you, and happy Easter.